The world is becoming an increasingly complex place where it's hard to understand what is fact and what is fiction, misinformation, disinformation, and the mainstream media. Who are we truly to believe in these trying times? We must first lean on the last bastion of truth. And you know what that is? Video game journalism. Said literally nobody ever. It recently came to my attention that IGN posted a review on Wuthering Waves, and as the resident Wuthering Waves guy, I gotta know what cream of the crop review IGN has decided to drop on Wuthering Waves. They've been pretty rough in recent years, if you didn't know. And so I want to see if they've actually given it a fair chance and there's actually good information here or not. Either way, I think we're going to get some good entertainment out of it. So let's see what IGN has to say about Wuthering Waves.
Heart rate should be fast. You're awake.
You know what? That was Female Rover. Actually, you know what? Out the gate. All right. Based IGN.
Right from the start, Wuthering Waves' odd mix of swords, guns, and spirit sets the stage for its apocalyptic battlefront, somehow combining disparate ideas into a combat spectacle.
Let the winds roar.
This story-driven gacha RPG will have you twirling like a ballerina, dodging attacks, and then passing the baton to a teammate to slam the enemy with a fish-like dragon.
Okay. All right. That's true. I mean, it's a lot of fluff so far, but okay, true.
Unfortunately, while those flashy, fast-paced fights and its parkour-like movement are exciting, Wuthering Waves also fails to impress in a few other key areas, like its lackluster story that makes the skip button look tempting at times.
So you don't know why you're here, where you're from, or who you are.
Yeah, I did forget how rough that part is, if I'm being honest. It's not necessarily the story itself that's the worst. The rate at which Yang Yang speaks, though, it literally feels like she's speaking on 0.5 times speed sometimes. You know, I just feel like we gotta spice that up a little bit of a faster delivery. But okay, fair enough. But we already know that they are going to be fixing some of this stuff in the future based on feedback from the company. But, you know, this review did come out almost 2 weeks ago. Solid music choices.
Wuthering Waves is all about action. Every character has an element and weapon type associated with them, as well as individual skills that you can level up. However, how you use those characters isn't quite a copy-paste of similar action RPGs like Genshin Impact. That's thanks in part—
You mean the direct competition and the one game that literally everybody has been comparing the game to. I mean, fair enough. Good thing you should address that.
To the intro and outro skills that can be used when you swap between each character in your 3-person team.
Watch and learn!
Which activate cool special attacks like a fire-infused shootout.
Remember, something different there, I know some people still draw on PGR for that. Something different about the intro and outro is that in PGR, it's the QTE, it just calls in the ability of the other character, it doesn't actually swap you to the other character, so it is still different there as well.
You also charge up a separate skill gauge by dishing out damage or successfully dodging and parrying enemy attacks.
Your concerto effect.
Of resonance.
And these systems add an appreciated layer of strategy to how you build your party and when exactly to change teammates. It's a little disappointing that the elemental system is essentially just a palette swap between characters, but their actual movesets are still varied enough that experimenting with team comps is quite fun.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like most people are only making those kinds of claims is because they're really missing the elemental reaction system of Genshin Impact, which in and of itself is fun and did bring a new, fresh kind of take on the character swapping genre. So like, I see why people do miss that a little bit. However, the deeper you get into the game, you start to realize there are resistances, there are increased damage effects still available. So like, it does matter a little bit more than what we originally had thought, but it is not quite the same kind of synergy as, you know, the Genshin elemental reaction system. So fair enough. Honestly, fair enough. It's almost 2 minutes in, and I don't hate anything being said so far.
All fired up.
Gear is also not quite what you'd expect. Rather than using traditional equipment like helmets and gloves, you strengthen your characters with echoes. animal-like companions that increase your attack, elemental damage, and so on. The strength of those buffs depends on how many of the same type you equip at once, and each echo takes up some of the limited space in your equipment slots.
I'm assuming he's trying to refer to the point system there, but I feel like you should have expanded on that a little bit more. I don't know, that felt like a really vague approach to talking about the ecosystem there. That was not very specific at all.
Restrictions encourage you to figure out how to squeeze in the most buffs you can, even if that means temporarily using echoes with suboptimal stats. The best part about echoes is how they tie into the environment.
They completely glossed over how echo building works at all. They didn't talk about the point system. They didn't talk about how there's not the same kind of slots or whatever for echoes, and how you do that. It seems like they're getting into the skill component here, but it seems like they're talking more about color palette. But I feel like the ecosystem is a huge thing to put emphasis on in terms of character building, but okay.
As you fight enemies and bosses, they'll sometimes leave behind ghost-like shells of themselves for you to absorb and convert into echoes.
Yes.
That makes exploration more appealing because finding different types of monsters could mean getting access to new kinds of buffs. Not only does this system reward you with interesting gear for your characters, it encourages you to fill out your map as you go.
It does. Early game, definitely filling out your databank is a huge driving factor for open world exploration, simply because you get the increased drop rate for getting your databank to a higher level. So it definitely is a big motivating factor in doing that. Okay. I'm confused right now. This video's got 2.7 thousand dislikes on it and 800 likes. What am I missing here that has pissed people off so much?
Bulldozing through the same enemies over and over again to collect echoes can start to feel repetitive after a few dozen hours, but at least they also get you points in a collection tracking guidebook.
And also to compensate for that, long term, you're going to be able to run tacit fields for echo farming if you don't want to do the open world, but just because we're still so early in the game, it's a way better use of your wave plates into the other forgeries, so you can get the additional kind of skill materials as opposed to wasting your wave plates on tacit fields right now.
As well as a battle pass full of rewards, so there are reasons to hunt them beyond just upping your stats.
I like for the battle pass, they showed the daily challenges, but okay.
Gotta catch them all. Even when happily farming, one part of Wuthering Waves that totally falls flat is its story. Developer Kuro Games has openly spoken about how it had to revamp the entire story ahead of launch, and sadly the version we ultimately got still falls short, with uneven pacing and too much exposition. The beginning is full of unnatural, lengthy conversations that use cryptic terminology you need to look up in encyclopedias and loading screens to actually understand, and it doesn't get any more compelling once you do.
Oh. By Pangu Terminal, she means the gourd-shaped device every resonator has.
Your main character...
No, honestly, true. The early game, information dropping that they do, while some of it is a necessary evil, it is not required in how they talked through that. And also earlier, they were showing the visuals of that research facility where literally it's 5 or 6 conversations in a row of just straight yapping, and it pissed me the heck off. So actually, that part's true. Pacing, we all know that. The story is not what it needed to be. The pacing is in a rough spot, but I'm optimistic for 1.1 still, if I do say.
Character follows the classic trope of an amnesiac protagonist that seemingly appears out of nowhere.
Yeah, definitely not super original there.
The generic story that revolves around the secrets of their past. That can work if done right, but this setup feels confusing and undeserved because of all the history and jargon thrown at you without any explanation as to how all of it connects.
It gives you a bit of a justification, though. When you have a character with amnesia, they serve as the player who's there as well. So there's an excuse to be explaining all of these terms and treating it like it's brand new information because the character has amnesia. So of course they're going to explain what all of these different terminologies and technologies are supposed to be. So it serves 2 purposes. 1, for mystery of the story. 2, to help give excuses for the player. So, I kind of understand that. It is a bit of a cop-out, though.
Things start to clear up in the later acts of the first chapter, only for it to introduce more characters that divide your attention before you even get to know them. And it doesn't help that the voice acting sounds borderline monotone across the board, even during intense cutscenes.
I'm fine too. I've never seen such a formidable tacit discord before.
Side quests.
Yeah, I wish they'd included that Rover clip with Scar, that one that gets circulated everywhere, of when Scar's giving this maniacal speech as he's going into this domain. Hold on, roll the clip.
Till we meet again, dear friends.
You're not going anywhere.
Honestly, that scene is so hilarious.
Don't do much to deepen the connection between the characters and the setting either. You can witness the dangers of this apocalyptic environment, like dying NPCs and comrades that melodramatically tell you to go on without them. But there's nothing that truly makes you think anyone important will get hurt.
Anyway, please allow me to introduce myself. I am Tao Chi.
Small things like
I just like when Tao Chi's on screen, so like I'm willing to excuse that.
the very few moments when your hero suddenly speaks despite otherwise being largely silent are also jarring. At some points, it's enough to just make you want to mash buttons and quickly skip through a tedious conversation or leave a scene on autoplay in the background.
Okay, yes, but actually personally, I like when the rover talks, and actually, to be honest, I wish they just had the rover talk more and like reduce the amount of like dialogue options, have the rover speak more. I'd be okay with that. But I'm gonna say, well, yes, this is like a full game review. I feel like they've just been like really been berating the story as being a problem here, which like that is true, and it's definitely a component to this, but like I'm kind of like, okay, we get it. Like the story's rough, the pacing's rough, some of the dialogue has issues, like great, okay, cool. Like let's get on to the next part of the game. Like I feel like we're just dragging here at this point.
Kuro Games occasionally attempts more meaningful side quests, like one about a monster mourning its mate and a researcher who similarly lost their partner, but not enough of them stand out.
That Morning Ajax quest actually would have been good if they had voiced it. I think it was a huge misstep that for the world quests, like the Morning Ajax and the Inferno Rider quest, those should have been voiced in my opinion, because they actually had some pretty cool plot lines in it, but I guarantee you 90% of players skipped those story quests because they weren't voiced. But they were actually like pretty good. And that part is disappointing.
You are all right, it seems.
These memorable quests are more of a rarity than the norm. Even when you have big side quests waiting to be completed after the roughly 20-hour main story, the large text blocks that always accompany them make them daunting to get started.
That's why they should be voiced.
For the rewards alone is at least a compelling incentive, because they won't exactly have you perched on the edge of your seat expecting some big surprise.
No, but you do get to do some cool stuff with the echoes in those world quests, though. I'm just putting that out there.
Thank goodness.
Oh, look, actual emotion. There was actual emotion in that line.
Thankfully, the rewards for climbing the ranks are tantalizing enough on their own. Wuthering Waves uses a fairly standard gacha system where you trade in-game currency for random character and weapon pulls, complete with the usual pity system to make sure you eventually get a high-quality reward. That said, this pity system is more generous than many other games in the genre, only taking 80 gacha pulls to get a guaranteed 5-star character or item, versus the 90 plus you'll generally see.
Well, by generally see, they mean Genshin. Like, I guarantee you that's what they're talking about. They're comparing it to Genshin. Because there's a lot of other gacha games that don't have a 90 pity, that have way less. Or in some cases, don't even have, like, an actual, like, hard pity, but give you, like, a currency. Like Nikkei, for example, you just have to do 200 pulls and then you can buy whatever. Like, it's not quite the same thing. You're just saying Genshin without saying Genshin. Let's be real here.
It also offers tons of free resources during the initial honeymoon phase, too, handing out dozens of pulls whenever you climb 10 or so ranks, alongside other systems that make them particularly easy to earn at the beginning.
That's like every gacha game ever. They flood you with currency in the early game so that it dries up in the later game, and that's when you start to open the pocketbooks, though. That's gacha, though. That's not unique to Wuthering Waves.
Even guaranteed to get at least one random 5-star character right away, plus another 5-star character of your choice after 80 pulls. And on top of that, Wuthering Waves is handing out a free pass that will be available until next year for another 5-star character.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of other gacha games, Genshin included, where in the first like couple weeks of the game, you could literally have 3 standard characters of your choice and then have enough currency and rewards saved up that you can basically get any new premium character of your choice. So like, as far as that side of the generosity goes, Wuthering Waves definitely wins out in that case.
That means you could have at least 2 top-tier fighters in your party within the first few hours of playing, and a third if you stick around for a couple more.
This flower is for you.
Marina, get out of my face.
You're still at the luck of the draw beyond that, but it feels generous out of the gate.
Well, you don't pull on the standard character banner after that. Moving forward, after you do those 3 characters, you just move on to the premium characters, and then you just kind of roll the dice on the 50-50. So You don't need to be worrying about that.
Especially for any gacha game fans burnt out on bad pulls elsewhere. Some of the characters do feel underpowered compared to others, which is sort of inevitable in games where the cast grows over time like this. However, Wuthering Waves does its best to offer future-proof free-to-play characters that'll make it easier to build optimized rotations without having to constantly keep up with the new releases. You unlock 6 4-star characters for free through the story that can charge your party's energy, strengthen their attacks, and heal as needed.
Commence healing.
It's great.
That's actually a great call out, to be honest. I'm getting legitimately surprised by this review. I mean, there's still some shortcomings here that I'm hoping they get to, but overall, like that's a great observation actually on IGN's part, where the main characters that you get that are the free characters do actually flex into a lot of different teams. Yang, you get a little bit of CC. Baija obviously is a healer, so if you have some bad luck on your healing, but I mean, you know, you have the other selectors and stuff, so you should probably be fine. But you've got like at least a healer you get out the gate, CC out the gate, you get a ranged DPS out the gate. You also get the multiple sword wielding characters, including the Rover, Sanwa, and Yang. Like you've got a lot of variety to utilize in the early game for sure. So actually, like, yeah, great point. Okay, maybe IGN's winning me over.
Great that this foundation, plus those guaranteed 5-star characters, make it so that beginners can start building strong team comps that feel satisfying right away.
I will say it takes a long time to get to 45 though. It takes a long time to get to 45. The Tower of Adversity one's pretty easy to get though, to get you on move. All right. I will say they have not talked nearly enough about the other systems. They spent like half of this review just berating the story and the pacing. They glossed over the ecosystem and then just said like, yeah, combat's good, but like I missed the elemental reaction system. Like I feel like they didn't even touch on the open world exploration at all. They haven't really touched on the boss fights or the dynamics of the boss fights. They haven't really talked about any of the end game combat either. They haven't talked about Tower of Adversity. They haven't talked about the hologram battles. Like they've glossed over so much right now. This is crazy to me. Okay, what's this verdict?
Moment of resonance.
Wuthering Waves' combat-heavy action, quick movement, and enticing echo collection enhance combat and exploration enough to let it respectably stand out from its competitors.
Okay, true. Very
the fights
true.
Are polished and sophisticated, rewarding reactivity and optimal builds and teams.
True.
On top of that, the Echo equipment system ties your character progression into the environment in a way that encourages you to uncover every inch of the map, which can be satisfying despite the repetitive process of fighting overworld mobs.
I'm feeling a compliment sandwich coming. I feel like they're getting ready to drop like a really low score, but let's see.
Unfortunately, the story is a bland, exposition-heavy slog with dull writing and voice acting.
The terminal can then convert its reverberation into an echo for use in battle.
So
that's also like early game stuff, but like not that I disagree, but like that's also like the very, very early game.
While the quests aren't its main draw,
okay,
Wuthering Waves is still worth looking into as a refreshing spin on the typical open world gacha RPG.
Is that the end of the review? Are you... What? They glossed over like 50% of the whole game. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't completely disagree with some of the takes that they've had on the story, which again have already been addressed by the developer at this point. But they did not give nearly enough time to the main draw of the game. The combat, the open world exploration, the ecosystem. They touch on like all three of those combined for like a minute in this review, when that is the main driving factor for this game. The combat in this game is fantastic especially for a gacha game, but I even think outside of a gacha game, the combat's actually still really good. Each character's got their own opportunity for animation canceling and combos. Even the 4-star or 5-star characters, they've done nothing in terms of rarity comparison. They give the most surface level approach to the actual gameplay mechanics and spent 80% of their time saying, yeah, the story's like super mid and the voice acting is bad. Are you kidding? I see why so many people are so upset with this now, because it's not about what they do say is the issue necessarily. It's what they don't say, and it's what they fail to talk about. Oh my gosh. This is 100% the case of somebody who just went through, beat the main story, and they were like, okay, I've done enough. I don't need to do Tower of Adversity. I don't need to do the hologram towers. I don't need to do the depths of the elusive realm. I don't need to talk about this. I don't need to talk about the echo skill system. Holy smokes. Holy smokes, this person has not played Wuthering Waves. Not really, at least. Holy. Well, that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far in the video, I greatly appreciate your time. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe on the channel for future Wuthering Waves content. Shout out to all of the patrons and the subscribers over on Twitch. If you want to catch me live, you can catch me at 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on every Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. We like to stream over there, play lots of Wuthering Waves, and play some other stuff too. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.